Hello, children. Today we are going to do another new chapter, and this is chapter 4 from the first unit of your Sunday school textbook, which is titled The Deliverance of the Jews. I am Mina Mathew, and I will be conducting the class for today. In this chapter, we will learn how the Lord, with his mighty hand, delivered his people from slavery. If you remember, the people of Israel were kept captive, were kept as slaves in Egypt. And in this chapter, we are going to read as to how they are finally delivered from that slavery by God. We are also going to learn about the commencement, that is, the beginning of a great ritual in memory of this incident which is ordained by the Lord. So, we will, as we proceed in the lesson, we will also learn about some other ritual which we are all following. We also see a community which goes forward undaunted and by crisis and problems as the people experience the love and care of God. The community here is that of the Israelites, and they go forward undaunted, meaning they go without any kind of fear in them, and they are ready to face their problems that they experience because of the love and care of God. In this lesson, we will also learn about the history of the people of God, that is, the Israelites. Now, let us know how the Israelites were delivered from the slavery in Egypt. In the Holy Bible, that is, in the book of Exodus, chapter 12, verse 40 to 41, there is the record that the Jews were slaves for 430 years in Egypt. We can even read about this captivity in the book of Genesis, chapter 15, verse 3, when Jehovah, that is God, foretold about this captivity to Abraham. It was only after the 10th affliction, namely the slaughter of the firstborn, that Pharaoh changed his mind. Now, children, if you remember, we had read about the 10 afflictions, that is the 10 plagues that came on Egypt. And the last affliction was the slaughter of the firstborn, and Pharaoh changed his mind only after that. He was forced to release the Hebrews, even though this was unbearable to the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh just was not wanting to let go of the Israelites. He wanted them to continue as slaves, but simply because he could not withstand the last affliction, so he was forced to release the Israelites. However, the angel of wrath passed over the houses of the Hebrews as their doorposts were marked with the blood of the Lamb. We must note here that the angel of death who passed over the houses of the Israelites did so as their doorposts were marked with the blood of the Lamb. None of the Israelites lost their firstborns. It was only the Egyptians who suffered in this. When the people of God began their journey from Egypt, all the Egyptians were busy burying their dead firstborn sons. So, when the Israelites, they left Egypt with Moses as their leader, all the Egyptians were busy burying their firstborn sons who were lying dead before them. About 6 lakh men, except women and children, began their journey on foot from Egypt. So the count given here is just a count of the men. The women and the children are not being counted in this number 6 lakh. But the people of Israel, while coming out of Egypt, had to cross the Red Sea, which was a great hurdle in their journey. Now it so happened that when the Israelites were walking out of Egypt, what lay before them was the Red Sea, and it was a great obstacle because they did not know how they were going to cross that sea. The people were very afraid with the Red Sea in front and the enemy army in the rear. The people cried out to the Lord to help them and spoke against Moses. They told Moses that it was better to be slaves to the Egyptians than be dead in the desert. So they were so frightened that they did not know what was going to happen. So when they saw that they were being followed by the enemy army, that is the army of the Egyptians, they felt frightened and they thought that it was better if they had continued as slaves there. But Moses told the people, "Don't be afraid. Just stand where you are and watch. You will see the wonderful way the Lord will rescue you today. The Lord will fight for you, and you shall be speechless with surprise." Moses assured the people that they need not be afraid. And as per God's command, Moses stretched his staff over the Red Sea. And what happened? The water split apart and stood as walls on either side. Imagine, children, have you ever seen water standing up? But here, the water of the sea, it divided itself and it stood up as two walls, and you could see a clear path through the sea. So, if you even look into the picture, you could see how the water of the sea is standing up as two walls on either sides. The people of Israel were indeed surprised and speechless to see the water of the sea split apart, standing as walls on either side. They walked through the dry seabed and reached the other shore. So now that they found a pathway through the sea, they were able to walk and reach the other side of the shore. Meanwhile, the Pharaoh, who realized his mistake of releasing the Israelites, sent his army chasing after them. Pharaoh was already regretting that he had allowed the Israelites to go, and so he sent his army after them. Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and the horsemen followed them into the middle of the sea. As the Israelites crossed over to the other side, they were closely followed by the Egyptian army. Jehovah, that is God, looked down from the cloud of fire upon the array of the Egyptians and began to trouble them. God was watching all this from up above, and he was present there in the cloud of fire. So he saw how the Egyptians were coming forward to catch the Israelites. So he began to trouble them. Then Moses stretched his hand again over the sea. Once all the Israelites had crossed over, Moses stretched his hand again over the sea, and then the water came back and drowned the chariots and horsemen of the Egyptians. The entire Egyptian army got drowned in the waters of the Red Sea. The people of Israel saw the Egyptians dead, washed upon the seashore. Thus Jehovah saved the people of Israel from the Egyptians. The Israelites, they sang praises to the Lord, and Miriam, who was Moses' sister, she took a timbrel and led the people in their songs of rejoicing as they continued their journey to the promised land. Now, children, we observe the Passover during the time of our Passion Week, the beginning of Lent. We observe the Passover. Now, the Passover is observed as the memorial of the deliverance of Israelites from their captivity in Egypt. It is also the beginning of a new era and a new life. So, what we read where the Israelites were saved from the angel of wrath, and the angel passed over their houses. This is what is being observed as a memorial, okay, of the deliverance of the Israelites. So it is also marking the beginning of a new era, meaning a new period and a new life. The history of the Jews began in the month of Abib or Nisan. So they used to we call this as the month of Abib. So their history began in the month of Abib. It is also known as Nisan. On the 10th day of the month of Abib, each family should select a lamb and keep it till the 14th day. The lamb should be a 1-year-old male without defects. So, in those times, in the month of Nisan, on the 10th day of that month, every family had to select this lamb and they would keep it till the 14th day. And it was told to them that the lamb should be of a year old and it should be a male and should not have any kind of defect, meaning it should not be unhealthy in any manner. The lamb should be killed in the evening of the 14th day, and the blood of the slaughtered lamb should be collected in a vessel and should be smeared on the side frames and panel above the door. So just like the Israelites were asked to smear the side of their doors with the blood of the lamb, the same thing was being followed here. So all the Jews, they would kill the lamb on the evening of the 14th day, and the blood of that slaughtered lamb, of that lamb that was killed, was collected in a vessel, in a utensil, and the same blood was used to smear the side frames and the panel above the door. The Jews were allowed to eat only unleavened bread for the 7 succeeding days. Unleavened bread is bread that is not allowed to ferment. Okay, generally when we make bread, we make the use of yeast, but in this, unleavened bread means it was not allowed to ferment, so they were not allowed to put yeast into the dough, so the bread would not rise, it would be a little hard, and the meat had to be roasted and could be eaten only with bitter herb. It could not be eaten raw or boiled. Now this observance of the Passover indicates the redemption of the sinner through Jesus Christ. Now why is this Passover observed? It is showing the redemption, meaning the saving of the sinner through Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ was the Lamb who bore the sins of the world. If you remember, Jesus gave up his life for the sinners, okay, for us who are used to committing sins. So he is the sacrificial lamb and he bore our sins. Later, the Jews settled down as a nation in Palestine, and the practice of killing the lamb at home stopped along with the smearing of blood on the doorposts. So as time passed, the practice of killing of the lamb stopped, and even the smearing of the blood on the doorposts was stopped. The sacrifices were now offered in the temple of Jerusalem, and the blood was poured at the foot of the altar itself. Each family with not less than 10 members could celebrate the Passover at home. So anyone who had a family not less than 10 members, they were allowed to celebrate the Passover. And that is why Jesus Christ and his disciples observed the Passover in a large furnished house. If you remember the Last Supper that Jesus had with his disciples, that is the Passover that he was celebrating with his disciples, and he was following the same custom with the Jews were following. Jesus Christ entered Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, which was the 10th day of the month of Nisan. He became the sacrificial lamb of the Passover and became an offering after 4 days. So now, in the present context, in the new context, it is Jesus who is the sacrificial lamb. So the lamb that was got on the 10th day, that here Jesus Christ is the Lamb, and the 10th day is the Palm Sunday, which we observe, and it was after 4 days, that the Lamb was sacrificed. So thus he became the sacrificial Lamb. On the day of the Passover, Jesus Christ founded the Holy Eucharist. So the founding of the Holy Eucharist was done on the day of the Passover by Jesus Christ. So as we conclude, let us remember that the Holy Eucharist founded by Jesus Christ is believed to be the offering for the redemption of sinners, that is, for saving the sinners. Jesus' sacrifice on the cross saved us from sin, Satan, and death. Okay, so these are the reasons why Jesus gave up his life, so that he could save us from becoming sinners, he could save us from Satan, and he could save us from death. Because when we are sinning, we are always afraid of death. But here, we are not frightened of death anymore. And the message that we get from this chapter is that if we learn to praise divine interventions and submit ourselves humbly before God, then God will take care of all our needs and remove our woes. God will remove all our sufferings. So the memory verse, children, is from Psalm 105, verse 26, which says, "Help me, O Lord my God. O save me according to your mercy." I repeat, help me, O Lord my God. O save me according to your mercy. Thank you, children. We will end the chapter here.
Subscribe now and press the bell icon. Never miss an update.